Well, it's Sunday afternoon, it's hot as hell outside, so what better to do with your time than poke around in the Octopus API? And whilst doing that, I came across something really rather interesting. A brand new outgoing export tariff called Prime Outgoing Octopus 12-month fixed. Now, the full name is listed in the API. It's showing as a fixed contract, a 12-month fixed contract starting in June. And the API is saying the availability date is the 22nd of June, 2026 at 1 p.m. BST. Interestingly, Octopus it has an event taking place tomorrow, so the timing certainly lines up. And again, I have had no confirmation for anybody of anything they're going to announce, but it certainly looks like a tariff is waiting to go live. The API also shows it, as I say, as a fixed term tariff. Now, our export tariffs up until now haven't been fixed. So it's interesting that this is a fixed price for a 12-month period. Now, it's marked as available across all standard UK electricity regions, and importantly, it isn't showing any obvious restrictions, well, at least not that I can see from the API. So let's get into the bit that everybody really wants to care about, the rates. Now, according to the API, this tariff has two export rates. One that runs from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. British Summer Time, and I'm assuming in the winter that will move from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. GMT. And if you export energy during that time, you will be paid 16 pence per kilowatt hour. Outside of that 3-hour window, exports are paid at 9 pence per kilowatt hour. Now, there's also no standing charge on this, just like all other export tariffs, so it's very easy to do the calculations based on those numbers. Now, this is quite different from traditional export tariffs, where you receive either the same rate all day, or if you're on something like Agile Export, then those numbers change every single 30-minute period. Instead, this tariff seems to be designed to reward exporting during a specific period when electricity is potentially more valuable to the grid. And that raises a very important question. Why 4 p.m. to 7 p.m.? Now, if you've watched this channel for any period of time, you'll know that electricity demand tends to rise significantly during the late afternoon and early evening. People get home from work, ovens get switched on, kettles start boiling, heat pumps begin topping up the heat in people's homes, hot water gets heated, all the usual things. Electric vehicles get plugged in, demand shoots up. It used to be called the Coronation Street effect, where during the ads breaks, everyone would switch the kettle on. But now it's more fixed in that period, people just getting on with their lives. And at the same time, solar generation is also beginning to fall away. The electricity you export at 5 o'clock in the afternoon is often worth much more to the grid than electricity that you send maybe at midday on a bright summer's day. And when there are millions of solar panels out there and generating, that electricity, when it's not needed, is worth even less. Now, what appears to be happening here is Octopus is trying to encourage exports exactly when the grid values them most. And if that's correct, it could create winners and losers depending on your setup. So who might benefit from this? Well, let's start with solar-only households. If you have solar panels and no battery, this tariff might not be quite as attractive as it first appears. The reason is simple. Most solar generation happens earlier in the day. By 4 o'clock, especially outside of the summer, your generation is already falling or may have even finished. That means a lot of your exports may still occur at the lower 9 pence rate. Now compare that with households that have both solar and battery storage, the equation changes dramatically. Instead of exporting excess solar at midday, you could store that energy in your battery, then deliberately export it between 4 and 7 in the evening to capture that higher 16 pence rate. Now, in effect, the battery becomes a timing tool. You're no longer just deciding whether to store energy, you're deciding when to sell it. And that's the potential where this tariff gets really interesting. Now, before everyone rushes off to celebrate, there's something important to consider. The off-peak export rate is only 9 pence per kilowatt hour. And that changes the maths because people today are receiving around 12 pence per kilowatt hour if you're on the standard outgoing tariff. So while 16 pence sounds fantastic, you may need to compare the overall outcome, not just the headline figure. Let's look at a simple example. Suppose you export 100 kilowatt hours in a month. On a 12 pence tariff, you earn £12. Now let's imagine you're on Prime Outgoing. 40 kilowatt hours are exported during the premium window, 60 kilowatt hours are exported outside. So 40 units at 16 pence gives you £6.40, and 60 units at 9 pence gives you £5.40. Total earnings, £11.80. In that example, you're actually slightly worse off. But let's change the numbers. Supposing 70 units are exported during the premium period and only 30 outside. Now you earn £11.20 from the premium exports and £2.70 from the rest. Total earnings, £13.90. Now you're ahead. So the key question isn't whether 16 pence is better than 12. The real question is how much of your export can be shifted into the 4 to 7 o'clock window. For battery owners, this is part of a much bigger trend. Historically, batteries are mainly about reducing imports. Store cheap electricity, use it later. Avoid buying expensive electricity from the grid, then batteries become useful for backup power. Keeping essential loads running during the power cut is something that a lot of people buy a battery to do. But essentially what we're now seeing is batteries becoming optimization tools. They're allowing house owners to decide exactly when energy is bought, stored, used, and sold. A tariff like this reinforces that trend. The value isn't just how much energy you generate, the value is increasingly when do you choose to export it. So why might Octopus be doing this? Because they already have a number of export tariffs. And in fact, I've just moved on to the Octopus Flux tariff, which basically gives me a much higher rate for exporting between 4 and 7 p.m. Well, now this next part is pure speculation on my part, because as I say, the only evidence of this so far are entries in the API. Octopus hasn't announced anything at the time of recording this video, but if this tariff launches as shown in the API, there are a few possible reasons. First, it encourages exports during periods of higher demand. Second, it may help reduce the flood of solar exports that occur around lunchtime. And third, it aligns customer behavior more closely with what the wholesale electricity market needs. And one final thing, it potentially helps balance the grid more effectively. In other words, it rewards exports when they are genuinely useful. Now, there are still plenty of unanswered questions. We don't know the official eligibility requirements. We don't know whether there will be restrictions around how many or what size of battery you can have. We don't know whether certain import tariffs will be required. We don't know if the details around the API will change in the 24 hours before it's due to launch. And we don't know how Octopus intends customers to use the tariff. So for now, it's important we don't get ahead of ourselves. What we do know is this new tariff is going to be called Prime Outgoing Octopus, 12-month fixed, because that's what it's listed as in the Octopus API. It appears to offer a 16 pence per kilowatt hour price between 4 and 7 p.m. and 9 pence per kilowatt hour for the rest of the day. It requires you to sign up to a 12-month fixed contract, and there's no standing charges because it's an export tariff. If these details are confirmed tomorrow, it could become a very interesting option for solar and battery owners who can shift exports into that premium period. But it certainly won't be automatically better for everyone. And as always, the devil's in the detail and the maths. So I'd love to hear from you. Would this tariff beat your current export setup? Let me know in the comments below. Let me know what battery size you have, what solar setup you have, and what export tariff you're currently on, and if you're planning to make a move when this new tariff is announced. Now, if Octopus makes the announcement tomorrow, I will obviously do a follow-up video with all of the confirmed details. But I wanted to get this one out to you as quick as I possibly can because I'm quite excited by this. Anyway, appreciate you jumping on this quick video. If I'm lucky, I'll see you back here real soon for another video. Take care. Bye-bye.